On today's episode, we sit down with Sid Kosatsky. Sid grew up in Winnipeg and from a young age was always interested in helping others. After taking some time off after high school, he decided to become a military firefighter. Sid spent the next 10 years in that role, and during the last few, he became interested in real estate investing. After listening to several real estate development and entrepreneurial podcasts, Sid purchased his own property and soon after realized he could list it on Airbnb. With the knowledge gained from the informative podcasts, Sid decided to start his own Airbnb management company called HostOften. He also created CollabOften and a cleaning company that, you guessed it, is tasked with cleaning the properties HostOften manages. Now, Sid's in charge of almost 50 Airbnb properties, and there's still a lot of room to grow. The potential is endless. Listen in as we go through it all.
I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me.
All right, we're back for another episode of Brand New View. Once again, back with my co-host, Ben Brammer. How are you, Ben?
Very well, thank you. You, Mark?
I'm great. You just had a wedding this weekend on Pictou Island. How was that?
Congratulations, Zach and Michaela. It was excellent. The weather was perfect. The good cheers were flowing, as well as the beers.
Always a good time. Tonight we're joined by Sid Kosatsky. How you doing, Sid?
Hey, doing great.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, we're happy to have you in the new studio here. Our second, technically third recording, but second actual person in the studio. And you're by way of old Winnipeg.
Yeah, I grew up in old Winnipeg.
Old new Winnipeg, you know.
Not to be confused with the burbs.
The burbs.
The burbs, yeah, down in central Winnipeg. Yeah, great place to grow up. Feel like I got a good city upbringing and very cultural city and diverse type amount of people, and yeah, musical city, very exciting place to grow up.
What kind of did you have an idea of what you wanted to do coming into your 20s when you're in high school? Do you have any plans for the future?
Yeah, I was like, frig it. I'm coming in my 20s. I'm in high school. I need to figure something out. It's already 4 years I should have graduated. But no, I honestly, I was like,
oh, it wasn't 9 to 12. It was 10 to 12.
So yeah, like grades 14 to 16. I was a pretty big stoner in high school, honestly. Like I got in high school and like smoked pot to fit in. I had like a big afro, and
Amazing.
Yeah, I wasn't very productive and was pretty lazy. And I didn't really have, but I don't know. I always knew I wanted to help people. I think has always been something. I feel like most people have that deep down. But I didn't have any goals or lists or like didn't know how to really figure it out. High school was really bad for it. There was no like guidance. It was just, yeah, you got to do science. You got to do
Math.
pre-cal. Yeah.
Pre-cal. Fucking hell.
Mathematics, physical education, softball. Yeah, it was really silly.
Geology.
But it was like, it was good. It was social. High school, you're around other people, and you learn to, yeah, just be a person, I guess. But yeah, I thought I wanted to be a firefighter. It made sense for me. I was always pretty spontaneous, but yeah, I wanted to help people, wanted something active, extreme, something that's diverse, gets my adrenaline going, something I'm proud of. Never had a really big desire to make money, but I thought, yeah, if I'm really happy with what I'm doing at work, which is the majority of your life, you're working, that's what you're doing, then yeah, it wouldn't really matter elsewhere. And if I had a job that I didn't need to take a vacation from, that was kind of the big goal. That's what I wanted to do. And that's what I slowly worked towards.
Okay.
What do you mean by slowly?
It's tough to get into firefighting school, isn't it? Or at least over here.
Yeah, it's tough to get a job firefighting.
Or I guess
I didn't really realize
school.
any of this at the time, but there's some professions where they'll only take as many people in to colleges as there are going to be jobs for them. But firefighting is not that. Something like 80% of people in school to be firefighters will never get a job, not even as a volunteer firefighter. I didn't even know this, but I did know there was a fire college in Brandon, Manitoba. It was 11 grand. So I was kind of saving up for that. I had poor eyesight. I saved up. I got laser eye surgery. I was working out, super scrawny. So I was just kind of getting in good shape for it, but also just dicking around. I spent 3 years not really doing much of anything. I was waiting tables, had some decent friends, and kind of did some partying, lived in my mom's basement, didn't travel, didn't really have like any kind of great challenging jobs. I had a bunch of different ones. Like I was a server for the most part, and delivery driver and bartender, and did security and did a bunch of different things. I tried to do some fun stuff. Like I did art modeling for fine artists.
Nude art modeling?
Nude, yeah. Anyone in Winnipeg listening might have some sketches at like Winnipeg Art Gallery and University of Manitoba. And so that was fun. And so I got to spend some time in universities that way. Always thought I should take some like intro courses like philosophy and sociology and like open my mind, but also felt like kind of a waste when I didn't know what I wanted to do and didn't really have the money. So anyway, spent 3 years where everyone was kind of doing stuff. No regrets at all. I'm sure it was all worth it and helped me kind of down the path, but also does seem a bit wasteful where I could have traveled for a year, Asia or South America for cheaper than I was living in Winnipeg anyway, or could have like taken some courses, but I was lazy. And
I've been there.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then someone
still
told me
there from time
Sounds
to
like
time.
life.
someone told me they have firefighters in the military. I was like, oh, okay, it's cool. Maybe I'll give that a shot. So I
really?
applied for the military. And
Okay.
I got in. It was like good timing.
So
Where
we never actually fought fires.
military firefighter.
Oh, okay, pardon me. I missed
Yeah,
that.
it was
I thought he said. I thought you said someone had equated the two.
Rewind the
Yeah,
tapes. You're
rewind
wrong.
that. Yeah.
No, apparently, I mean that's news to me too. That the military, it was
was news to me.
things go. I
news
think
every
that's
time
what
I
I've
talk to
heard
that, so I was
in
like,
the
that
military.
can't be the thing.
Yeah, when I got accepted before I actually got in, I'd be telling people at first, like, I'm a military firefighter. Like, what do you do? I was like, I don't know. I think it's gonna be like putting out tank fires. I actually stopped asking people after I'd been doing it for a long time what they do because I didn't want to get into it. It's like, it's like interesting to hear what people do, especially if it's different. But anytime I tell people, they ask me, what's your day to day? And even if you're passionate about your job, like saying the same thing over and over again, like your day to day, I feel like for me is kind of boring small talk. But for everyone else, it's like, I didn't know that thing existed. I want to hear about it. It's like, go to work, check the fire trucks.
Are they red or are they camo?
They're red or yellow. Yeah, they're not camo. Not in Canada anyway. Maybe overseas. I never actually went overseas.
Blue over there or something.
Yeah, something. I should
would've
remember.
went with
I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was like almost a year ago since I left, so it's all I hate now.
That's ages ago.
But it was really good timing. I applied like April 1st, and that's when their new fiscal year is. So like I came in Winnipeg,
April
and they're
Fools.
like, we have 3 openings for the whole region. This is great. You did great on your interview. I think you got it. And I didn't realize once I got in, like everyone else I was in school with, people in Ontario, they said, there was like 9,000 people who applied, and they have all these certifications. They all went to school for years, and I was the only person, one of 2, I think, at the academy in the military who didn't already go to a fire academy and train civilian side. So it was just like right place, right time. Everything works out really well.
That's good.
What year was this?
It's the power of the secret.
Do you remember?
Yeah. This year minus 11.
Okay.
2008.
2000.
Yeah.
So you found out you could enter the military and become a firefighter with them. How did that? How were the first few years? Because you said off the pod that you did that for about a decade, the majority of your 20s.
Yeah. I got in, and my whole concept was like, I'm a firefighter in the military. I want to save lives. I don't want to take them. I love people. But I was in basic training. Like I ate it up. There's like 75 people in basic training. I think 20 people ended graduating, like everyone kind of dropped out or whatever. But for me, I worked out beforehand. I did P90X, so I
remember that shit.
shredded. But I was in such good shape.
Yoked.
I was like, I got out of shape in basic training because there's like people, middle-aged people whose kids were out of school, and they're like, yeah, you know what? I don't know what to do with my life now. I'm going to join basic training and be a clerk. So, but basic training is the same for everyone, and it's very PC. And they don't give you too hard of a time. And wasn't enough yelling, wasn't enough running. I was like,
I want to be talked down to.
Give me more.
I remember like taking all the cleaning supplies, like the big 4-liter jugs of concentrated solution, whatever, and I like filled my rucksack with them. So we went on like the long forced marches. I was like, I had like a little extra workout at least. So I was like, I trained so hard to get here, and I'm getting out of shape. And they would only give you 25
You're like putting
push-ups.
bricks in your
I
cargo
can do
pants.
60 push-ups. But yeah, it was great. So I was like eating it up. I was like, I want to be in the infantry now. This is fun. It's a cool challenge. They had this mentality that like recruit is the easiest job in the world. You just have to do exactly as you're told. And it was so confusing for people because they're like, no, they told us like to turn our lights out at 8, but I'm pretty sure they meant 8:30. I'm like, who cares if they're wrong? Just do it. That's all. It was so easy. You just do exactly what you're told. People couldn't handle it. It was great. It was easy. Yeah, anyway, I finished. I became a firefighter, got lazy.
Okay. Got lazy, you said.
Yeah, definitely like lost a lot of that drive from basic training. Like there was like a year holding period where I felt like I was in daycare. I was like waiting for my courses to start. And I was kind of just, it was like I was going to daycare where like we'd go to this trailer every day and just like sit there and really didn't do much. Honestly, I don't even know how to describe it. It was daycare.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then by the time I got into the fire academy, I'd like just kind of been partying for a while and would just go out drinking and then go to class in the morning. And it was like a 9-month course that would normally be like 4 months. So it was great. It was a lot of fun. Got to play with fire, became a firefighter. Not a very busy fire hall in the military. So there's like 400 military firefighters. They're just at air bases. Yeah, we're pretty much waiting for fires. A lot of cool training, but not as busy as a city firefighter.
That's true. I would imagine there's more precautions taken on military bases.
And when were you always stationed in the same spot?
So that was another big challenge in my life. Yeah, out of 20 of us at the fire academy, everyone got their first or second choice for where they wanted to go. And there's 7 different bases in Canada, and you list your top 3. If I was to list all 7, Cold Lake would have been the last one. I was one of 2 people that
Shout out Cold
had
Lake.
to go to
Shout out
Cold Lake.
Cold Lake.
They had to send people to Cold Lake. So I was single, and I was like young, prime of my life, 22, and I went to Cold Lake for 6 years. And it was like 80% guys, oil and gas town, northern Alberta, real expensive to live.
Yeah.
It was a challenge. It was a struggle, and
That's tough,
just
yeah.
worked 2 jobs. And
Isolation is fucking tough. I don't know. I don't think I could do it.
I loved how you said if there were 7 choices, it would be my last one.
If there was 100,
Everyone picks 3, and everyone got their top 2, and I got fucking Cold Lake.
I knew it was part of the job, but I did join to travel and do cool things. And but yeah, I just felt very limited. Like not only am I not doing that, but I'm not near a city. I'm not stimulated. There's no arts and culture. Very conservative, redneck. Everyone I worked with was just like so racist and small-minded.
Yeah.
So it wasn't ideal. And I definitely wanted to be single and just kind of meet people and wasn't looking for a partner. But everyone who did get posted there with a partner was pretty lucky because you're not finding one there. It's pretty lonely.
pretty harsh.
So it ended up being a good thing. So I worked at the fire hall, and then I always had a second job. I waited tables every night. At one point, the most I worked 75 days in a row. Like I'd work at the fire hall in a day, go serve in the night, and then I would sometimes bartend or bounce at a nightclub after that. And then on my days off from the fire hall, I'd still serve at least. Worked out 6 days a week. I was like twice as big as I am now. I was like in perfect shape, healthy, happy, and yeah, because I chose to have no life in Cold Lake because I just did not get along with those people. They just weren't my people. I would just save up a bunch of money. I paid off all my debt, which was just dumb consumer debt, but I was able to travel on all my time off. And so the crazy thing is, in the military, you start with 20 and then you get 25 vacation days. But as a firefighter, you're working 4 days on, 4 days off. So my 20 vacation days ended up working out to like 5 2-week blocks of vacation throughout the year. So pretty much every other month, I'm getting 2 weeks off. Plus, I'm getting like 6 days off once a month. So the struggle is I just didn't have money to figure it out. So because I was always working in Cold Lake for the first 4 years, I did not spend one vacation day in Cold Lake. So that's how I got to travel. So it was mostly at first going to Winnipeg, where I was from, seeing friends, and then I had friends in Toronto. Then I started going to music festivals, and then friends in Calgary, and I explored the mountains, and then they brought me to Peru, and then I went to Nepal and through Asia, and yeah, I started doing a lot of cooler stuff, and still felt like it wasn't traveling. It was still like vacation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess there's always a silver lining for sure. If I'd gone to a city, I just would have turned my $45,000 of debt into $100,000 of debt and never would have left the city and got syphilis. So
That's a good point. Well, it's good to look at the positive of that. Even
Made the best of that situation.
started with your dead last pick and made it your number one choice. It seems.
yeah.
I think that's awesome for the 4 of the 6 years. So what'd you do the other 2 years?
Also, same thing.
Okay.
So first 4 years,
another tiny
this
town.
is what was happening. The other years, also same thing happening. But I think after the 4th, I kind of transitioned to serving job I was working at. The position was ending, and I was doing other stuff, and I just didn't pick it back up, and I had paid off my debt at that point. And so at that point, I was like paying down $2,000 a month in debt, plus putting away like $500 into TFSA and just like working. So the idea was if I could keep doing that after I paid off my debt, I'd like save some money. So I kind of did for a while, but then once I stopped working, so if you work 75 days in a row, best thing to do the 76th day is just work. But if you take that day off, man, it's hard to go back. Like I worked out 6 days a week for 5 years and was like bodybuilding. I took a week off. That was like 3 years ago. I cannot imagine going back to the gym. And I loved it. Gym was amazing. It was so much fun. I felt great. Not going back. What's the, yeah.
There you go. Haven't looked back.
Just 1 week and it's turned into 3 years.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
But year 5, so at this point I'd been Tindering for probably a year and a half, 2 years. It's funny, I went
Shout out
on,
Tinder. Why not?
forget what
Should've
trip,
dated.
it was like one of my first trips, and I got back, and my friend, I was talking to her, I was like, man, I am so lonely, I'm back here, like I know I'm used to this, like I'm genuinely a happy person, I don't have any kind of real depression or anything, so like for me to be sad, I feel like it's just such a waste. I'm just like, obviously nothing's really great here. And she's like, have you tried Tinder? Like, because she's in Toronto, so Tinder is like a thing.
Huge.
But I was an early adopter. You hear people talking about being early adopters of new software. Man, I was ahead of the time. So I
This
got on
is like
Tinder.
2013.
You got offered Tinder Plus.
2014, right?
Yeah, man. So
Were you an early adopter too?
No, I added 5 to 2008.
But I mean, I was probably one of the millions of people on Tinder, but I was an earlier adopter for Cold Lake because I got on, I was like, oh, cool. I was like, oh yeah, I know her. Like, oh yeah, look at these people. Swiped through 14 people, and then it was like, we're out of people in your area. Check back. I was like, I got like a 60-kilometer radius. What do you mean out of people? So that's what I meant by early adopter. Yeah, year 5. Yeah, so I obviously didn't meet anyone on Tinder. This was like 3 years maybe in, and I dropped it, but then I would go visit people in Edmonton and Calgary a good bit. And whenever I was down visiting friends, I didn't see anybody. So I actually decided that I was just going to be celibate because I'd go visit friends wherever I was going for 2-3 weeks. I would want to spend as much time as possible with my friends. So I didn't want to date someone for 2 or 3 weeks or have a long distance girlfriend. And there was really no prospects in Cold Lake. So it was actually easy decision to choose to be celibate. I was like, I haven't jerked off in a month anyway. I'm already like got to get a record going. Yeah. And I ended up being celibate for 2 years and built the best relationships with some amazing women. Ended up having this massive friend group in Toronto that's just like a huge group of lesbians who are in this community in Toronto that like there were no other guys around. And I got everything I needed at the time as far as female companionship from having all these amazing platonic relationships with women who are just beautiful inside and out. And because I chose to be celibate, it was just, everything was so different. Like, you know, I had spent years going to the bar and like, not necessarily trying to pick up girls, but that's always kind of something on the guys' minds and something you're thinking about. So going to the bar was because I wanted to be there with friends. I wanted to be dancing. Hanging out with girls is because I want to be. So because there was never any intention and I was clear to myself, that just really opened it up to having some amazing relationships. But yeah, once it kind of got to the end of it, I was ready to be with people. Got back on Tinder. I tried it out when I was like passing through Edmonton and Calgary, and yeah, got a bunch of matches. But flash forward, I ended up matching with Emma. I see the match. I was at the fire hall. I'll give her a shout out. was like, wow, this must have been when I was passing through Calgary. Beautiful girl. I look, it was Cold Lake. I like went to the washroom because I was working on the fire hall. Like sat on it. I was like, started messaging. As soon as we started messaging, I was like, you know what? You should just give me your phone number because then we can chat. I was like, I get it. Like get it quick. Because I heard so many stories, like seeing all these people who have great partners in Cold Lake. And I was like, yeah, as soon as this girl moved there, within 2 weeks, they were dating. And that's it. And like, you lock it down. And definitely right place, right time. But also she was the one who was meant to be. And yeah, we like went on a date a couple days later and saw each other every day after. 5 months later, we both moved into a new place together, started a life. Moved to Halifax.
That's awesome.
Got
Moved
married,
to Halifax.
Bought some houses.
What year did you move to Halifax?
2016. Yeah,
Jess is
2016.
shaking her head.
Yeah.
One of those years in there.
Summer. A
couple years
May
ago.
2016. 3 years ago.
Okay. And at that point, were you looking to join the military over here as a firefighter?
Yes, I actually got posted here. So after 6 years in Cold Lake, they finally gave me the option, and my top choices were Comox, which is on Vancouver Island, then Halifax, which is here in Halifax, and somewhere else I think around here, Greenwood, which is Bay of Fundy area.
Yeah. Beautiful area.
Yeah, and they gave me Halifax, and my partner's from Bedford, and she has family around here, so it made sense.
What was she doing in Cold Lake?
She is a veterinarian, and so now that I'm out of the military, we're both vets. So I always say veterinarian because I feel like everyone is vets, so I just want to get confused. But her grandparents, so she's from Halifax, but she has a set of grandparents who live out there. Her great grandpa homesteaded there, had a piece of land, so that's kind of cool. It was like cool to see that people were actually in Cold Lake for a reason before oil and gas or the military.
So yeah, you said you got stationed in Halifax.
Right.
After one of your top choices, one of the places on Vancouver Island as well.
Mm-hmm. So they gave us Shearwater, which never would have been an earlier choice. I didn't really know much about Halifax. Who knew it would be the perfect fit?
Right.
Yeah. Now we're kind of gonna get to some of the formative things that kind of led me down a different path from the military. So because I was traveling so much, I was going to Calgary to see friends 6 hours away and going 9 hours to Waterton, which is a beautiful national park in the mountains. I was listening at satellite radio, and it wasn't until like 4 years in to driving. I drive to Winnipeg 13 hours that I discovered podcasts. I discovered them. No one even knew they existed. And yeah, it changed everything. I was like, it was cool. The only ones that were really informative that I listened to were Stuff You Should Know. I just like those guys. They just had like a good back and forth. I got to know them, and they just teach you stuff that you really don't need to know. It's just like, how did the Chernobyl incident happen? And why do frogs feel so slimy? It wasn't quite like that, but yeah, they talk for like 45 minutes and you'd actually learn cool things about history and science and things.
And you don't have to contribute to the conversation. Mm-hmm. You can just listen.
Yeah, you just consume.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's what we always equate it to. It's you're part of a conversation, but you don't get called upon. You just get to listen. There's no pressure.
Mm-hmm. So, listening to Stuff You Should Know podcasts, I just remember I was driving to Calgary, 6 hour drive. I was like a few hours in, and I was learning about why frogs are so slimy on your tongue. I was like, okay, this is stuff maybe I should know, but like I don't need to know. And there's stuff I need to know. And because I paid off my debt, I was working for a while. I was able to buy a house. Wasn't going to do in Cold Lake. So I actually had enough saved for like a good down payment. So I knew as soon as I got posted, which was coming up now, I was like accepted. This was a few months before I moved to Halifax. I had to buy a house for the first time, and I didn't really have anyone in my life to teach me. I didn't really have a relationship with my dad. My mom had the same house forever, and yeah, I was like, Stuff You Should Know guys. I don't even know if they know how to buy a house. They just know science stuff. So yeah, I just like looked up Canadian real estate or house buying podcast, and it was just, I'm gonna knock these guys, but I love them, and I actually just pitched them to like put me on their show. Terrible quality. It sounds like they're like they are talking on the phone. They talk and they banter for like the first 35 minutes. So you took your kids where? great. And I would actually listen to that. And
Should we
it was
shout
like,
them out?
yeah.
Yeah, I want to be on their
REI,
podcast.
Real Estate Investing Podcast, Breakthrough Podcast, something like that. I don't remember. Anyway, yeah,
the horn that
it was
doesn't
like a
work
good
anymore.
podcast where like these guys were real estate investors and they talked about that. So good way to learn about buying your first house. Learn about real estate investing. It's the same thing. Buying a house is real estate investing. So yeah, I'd listen to the podcast and I ended up like listening to them when I wasn't driving. I just really enjoyed that content. And I'm listening to 30 episodes, like 30 hours, so a full semester of real estate investing. And they'd have guests on who were mortgage specialists, developers, people who had a lot of properties, whatever it is. And they would recommend books they'd write. And I tried reading a couple of the books from the podcast and it was just like so boring and just useless because I'd listened to 30 episodes. I was like, whoa, I literally know everything about real estate investing. Like, I don't need to read a book about it. So that was like my big getting into, I guess, personal development podcasts. Like that was it. That was like me really going to school, and that sparked me wanting to be a real estate investor and get involved with podcasts too. I was like, man, I'm gonna be a real estate investor. I'm on my own podcast. So that led me to looking for investment properties for my first house, looking for duplexes and triplexes, and coming from Cold Lake where it's like $600,000 for a piece of crap, where you can come here and buy something for like $250,000 that's technically a duplex. And
You could buy
own
3
both
of those
parts.
for $600,000.
Yeah, exactly. So I got here, and I actually had like a 20% down payment on my first house. And yeah, I ended up buying a pretty expensive house, but comparing it to the people I worked with were shocked that I paid over $300,000 because they spent like some of them less than $100,000 on their house, and it's half of a duplex, which would be called a semi-detached home. I was like, oh, you bought a duplex? I was like, wait, you only bought half of the duplex? What did that cost you? Like $50,000? Yeah. So like just because from coming from Cold Lake, just felt like I all of a sudden had money and was rich in Halifax compared to I was there. And yeah, that's how I kind of got into real estate investing, listened to a bunch more podcasts, entrepreneur stuff, personal development stuff, started taking action while I was listening to. And that's what pushed me to be an entrepreneur. I feel like the reason I wanted to be an actor, going back to what I was saying before, is because like I watch a lot of movies and TV. So I want to be an actor. You listen to a lot of podcasts, you want to be a podcast host or a podcast guest or whatever the podcast guys do. And so
Out there in podcast land, you know.
before I was listening to a lot of entrepreneurial podcasts, and they're talking about having a VA, a virtual assistant, someone overseas who you pay well for the Philippines, so they make less money and they do a lot of good work for you. And you know, how you can leave your job and become an entrepreneur, all these things. So I had, for the first time ever, goals besides being a firefighter, and they were to become an entrepreneur, hire a VA, and be on a podcast. And yeah, I realized all you have to do to actually do that is just like go online and register your business for $60. You're an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Go on Fiverr, go on Upwork, whatever. Hire somebody to do some work for you. You have your own assistant all of a sudden for a few bucks. And then just reach out to any podcast and be like, yeah, look at what I did. I have no education, no experience. I started from scratch. And now look at me. Do you want me to talk about that on your podcast? And they're like, yeah, for sure. That's it. You just have to do it. It's so cool. And so, yeah, once I just realized that like everybody I'd been listening to on the podcasts and everybody who's doing the things I wanted to do was just doing it. They're just doing stuff that they don't need to go to school for because all of the information is just online. Yeah, it
School
just
or
changed
Google.
everything. And yeah, it's been
So you like got out of the military and then just quickly
What?
jumped into this? Or?
I started a side hustle.
yeah. So
how did
I
it
don't know if you're
start?
gonna want a different segue until like I know it's just like jumping around. So anyway, real estate appealed to me for a lot of reasons. I just love old architecture and history, and I love just the idea of what a home and a house can be, and just the experience, and yeah, just so many different parts of it. So I ended up buying a house in Dartmouth across from Lake Banook that is not ideal for an investment property. And my realtor told me we'd been looking at investment properties. Like, this is not that. But, you know, it's got a great, beautiful big backyard, a double lot. It's a cool house. You're not going to make money renting it out, but yeah, so my wife and I just kind of fell in love with it. We just bought this property that wasn't a part of the plan, and only lived there for 6 months until she got a job at a different vet clinic in Truro. So we kind of moved for her work, and we tried Airbnb twice. It was something I'd always wanted to do when I was in Cold Lake. I wanted to try Airbnb and couch surfing and all kinds of other fun platforms that just weren't feasible there because there aren't enough tourists or enough people. So once we moved, I kind of already had the listing and knew how to do it. I put our house on Airbnb, and because I was living an hour away now, I needed to build the systems to manage it from far away. Roundabout way of doing this, I didn't really think made sense to hire a manager. Although if I had just hired a manager at the time, I would have made more money than doing it myself because they would have done such a good job. I wouldn't have had to learn how to create this business of even running one Airbnb is a lot of work. But I started hiring and interviewing cleaners from Kijiji and building these systems to manage my own Airbnb. And because I knew I needed multiple cleaners, because you can't have one cleaner who cleans for you random times, maybe once or twice a week, she's got to have other work. So I had multiple on hand, and then I wanted to give them more work so they'd stick around. So I just put up ads also on Kijiji for Airbnb cleaning company, and just like got them work. And yeah, people suggested I manage other people's Airbnbs because they saw that I had a little bit of a passion for it. And so really, as I was just listing my own Airbnb and kind of figuring it out, I started an Airbnb management company because I'd listened to so many podcasts about it and done the research. Yeah, I already felt like a pro. And this is something that had been happening for a long time, but because Halifax is like a couple years behind Toronto, let's say, it wasn't a big thing here. There was only one Airbnb management company. So yeah, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had future dreams of having my own music venue community space. I did actually start to make a game plan of how I'd be an entrepreneur. So when this opportunity came up, people recommended I help other people manage their Airbnbs. I decided to take it and practice entrepreneurship by creating a full business out of it. And I did everything. I created a full business to manage people's Airbnbs. I created the website, I registered it. I started going through all the steps and figuring out the accounting and the payroll and marketing and website design for this practice business that ended up being a real business that is now scaled into almost 50 properties and 25 employees, and was supposed to be kind of for fun as a way that I wasn't supposed to spend any money on it either. It was just supposed to be like, if it doesn't work out, whatever, this is cheaper than school. Obviously, it ended up changing. I ended up hiring my first VA.
Yeah.
That was like always the goal.
Sorry, Sarah.
So, yeah, and it was Fiverr. So I started HostOften, an Airbnb management company, and the biggest thing we did at first, I hired cleaners. I knew I needed to figure out proper cleaning systems. So in the beginning, I only was managing one property besides my own, and then we were cleaning for 4 different Airbnbs. And it was crazy. I just had spreadsheets. I was trying to track everyone's hours and text and like get everyone going where they needed to go. It was overwhelming. And then I eventually was like, okay, I'm going to try out a VA, just help with a little bit of this stuff. And my wife's like, well, I thought that's like a year out plan. You're going to hire a VA. This was like pretty early in. And as soon as I did, I was like, no, it's going to be 10 hours a week. I'm just going to try it out. It's going to be a few bucks. Week one, I told them, I was like, I needed to work 50 hours a week. You were coming on full time. This is how you do payroll. This is how you do customer support. And as soon as she started doing it, I was just on a trip to PEI with my wife. Like, I was overwhelmed with somebody who's also like working 50 hours a week, doing all the stuff I was just doing. I was like, how was I doing that a couple days ago? So that's what spawned the addiction for hiring people, which is how anyone really scales a business. It's just like always seems like there's way more work to do than anyone could do, and you keep finding people to do it. So that's it's a big strength. But yeah.
So would you say that
HostOften?
You obviously, HostOften, little CollabOften.
So HostOften, when I was first kind of starting, I was reaching out to all my friends who don't live in Halifax and like just message everyone, hey guys, I'm starting a business. I love your feedback. What would be a good business name? What do you think about this? And everyone was just like giving jokes or useless stuff. And I was like, was just trying to like include my friends into where my life is going, and they just were not helpful at all. I was like, I don't know, there's just so many different things you have to do. I was like, I'm just spending so much time brainstorming business name, or I'm spending so much time doing these little things.
Trying to get those .coms.
Where I need to be, hiring somebody, and the .coms weren't free. So I actually just hired someone on Fiverr who, I don't even know, it was like $40. But the way it worked is you don't pay them unless they give you a name that you use. And so I had specifications that it had to be a free .com, not trademarked, all the social handles free. And so they're just giving me all this garbage. And then, in there was HostOften. And I don't know, someone saw it like, oh, that's good. I was like, yeah, where is it? And it's
I like it a lot.
Yeah,
two words.
It's great.
And the .com is free. 2 real words. And the .com is free.
Perfect.
Good enough.
Yeah.
I have a .com.
We'll take it.
Not .ca, not .org, .com.
That's crazy.
So I took it. It was like, sweet, best $40.
That's amazing. So you kind of like, I mean, you mentioned you had the podcast that you were listening to, and all of a sudden you had this knowledge, and it seems like you didn't really realize how much you really knew until you started doing it. So did you have much of a plan going into it? You're like, I'm just going to fucking do this.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. I was consuming content and just like, watching movies and wanting to be an actor. I was really just passively listening and like getting it all in, and definitely learning a lot. But you hear so many quotes and you learn so many lessons. Like most of them are just going to end up being noise that doesn't necessarily play a part later on. I'm sure a lot of it unconsciously did come back in, but I just listened to something great that there's a guest on a podcast, and then he linked to this webinario.
Webinar?
No, it was a webinar.
I was going to help you there.
It was a webinario. It was a webinar. And he, it was like the whole thing was a lesson that you had to actively do. And I decided to sit down and take notes. I never used pen and paper, like on my computer, and follow it. And it was, okay, obviously you need goals. You need to list your top 5 goals, break it down, these littler goals, how you're working towards it, how every day you're building towards it. I was like, that's like common sense stuff that I've kind of heard on all these other podcasts. I never actually made my goals because that's scary. I've never made goals my entire life, because as soon as you say it out loud, okay, you have to do that. Otherwise, you're a liar and a failure.
Pressure's on.
Yeah. So
You're a phony.
but it was cool because he was like, okay, before you need your goals, more importantly is what are the reasons for those goals? So he's like, what are the top 5 reasons? And he was breaking it down to like, why are these your reasons? What's
your why?
important to you in life? Yeah. So I was listening to my reasons, which had nothing to do with any goals I'd thought of. And it was to always be creating, to be an impactful part of my community, to help support my family and friends, to be financially flexible. And like people say, I want to make money. I want to be rich. Like, why? What is this? What are you actually trying to do? And I actually had things in there. Like I wanted to have recognition for what I was doing. I've always felt like an artist, even though I never was painting or singing or playing an instrument. Business ended up becoming my art form, where an artist who builds or paints or sculpts something beautiful, I feel like wants people to notice it and say that it's something, appreciate it. Most artists do want some recognition, and I have done art that no one's seen. I've done for me and destroyed it. I feel like that's a thing people do, but for the most part, artists want some recognition. So that was something I felt I was saying differently than other entrepreneurs I was connecting with. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to do this to help my community and help my family, and I don't care if anyone knows what I'm doing. I think it is important to realize, I want recognition. I want people to appreciate my art and have it do something for the community. So listing all those reasons made it kind of clear, and I ended up building these goals. And to get to these goals, I had to change my lifestyle and start scheduling things and waking up properly every day and being motivated and consuming content that's going to help me. And so I was really just focusing on this like hard driving entrepreneur path for a bit. And it was targeted towards what I had built as my ideal career, which was definitely leaving the military. I loved the job, but I could never choose where I lived. I had to have leave passes to travel. I wanted to be free to choose where I live and who I'm with. So I knew I needed to move on. I was thinking about real estate and a lot of other things, but starting my own business made the most sense. Starting what was going to combine my passions with my partners, a hobby farm that's also a community space, that's bringing community to us. It's a music venue that has artists, a residency program that has nonprofit aspects and is growing healthy food. I designed this beautiful thing that just had everything. And instead of like me just having one good thing and then go and finding those different things elsewhere, I just wanted it all to be kind of in this one business, which wasn't really practical, but I had built the vision for it and it was beautiful. And it only lasted a couple weeks that I was like hard focused for that, because one of the other things I'd learned from this webinar is, okay, you have to prioritize like these daily tasks. And one of them is making income. What are your highest producing income activities? I was like, well, I have my salary as a firefighter. I just have to show up. That's easy. So I can actually work on my business while I'm there. The other thing is I have this new Airbnb that can make money. So I should focus on that, make money with the Airbnb that's going to let me do some other things. And that is when I started turning that into an Airbnb management company that was going to be a side hustle that's going to teach me all these things about entrepreneurship, which is like a mini goal that I'm going to learn how to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to have this practice. I'm going to learn how to register a business so that when I'm done with the military, I have this property. I'm then not just fumbling around with this property and I don't really know what I'm doing. I've had practice. But I ended up applying those reasons to what I was doing with the Airbnb management company and realized that it actually had more of the things I wanted. It gave me more flexibility. It gave me multiple properties. It let me travel and work remotely, not be stuck to this rural place. And instead of bringing community to me, I was spreading community around, but I was also able to move and weave through communities kind of all over the place. So somewhat unintentional, but if anyone knows the secret and the law of attraction, because I really was working for something, I was working for these reasons of creating and having a community and building something that happened. Mm-hmm. Not at all the way I'd expected or wanted or planned, but it ended up happening and it's continuing to happen. And yeah, the goals I set now are much looser and I don't schedule as much. I'm kind of more free flowing, but because I do still have those exact same reasons and know what I want to work towards, it just seems to happen in different ways. And because there's so many different layers, I think, in the human mind, I think I'm just making a lot of it happen unintentionally. When I feel lost and confused, I don't know what I'm doing. My unconscious is like pushing me somewhere that I don't realize I'm there until I've been there for a couple months.
That's true. I mean, we talked about that a couple episodes ago. Like the universe will reflect back what you put into it. So you prepared yourself. You were ready for what the universe was kind of going to give you. And you could take those steps forward as opposed to someone who's not listening to this podcast or not preparing and taking the steps to learn how to do an Airbnb management company. They can't do anything with what the universe may give them.
Yeah.
And they may not even recognize what's being given to them is the big thing.
Absolutely. How do we even reach those people? Step one, listen to this podcast. But if they're not listening to this podcast, how do they know? Step one. Hey, for everyone who isn't listening to this podcast right now, tune in.
Yeah. How do we take over the radio waves for like 5 seconds?
That's actually incredible. That was really fun to listen to.
There's like all these little action points, like days lead to months. Just like having that in the back of your head, days lead to months. That's so fucking scary. I want to be here in months. I want to be here in years. Like, all I did today was like tweak my website or respond to a few Facebook posts for my business or like try to figure out how to register my business. I feel crippled that like all these different things. So I ended up, just like breaking down these massive goals into littler goals and littler goals. And it's like, okay, you have this 2-year goal, this 1-year goal. To get to that 1-year goal, what do you need to be at in 3 months? I was like, well, I need to like have friends who are developers, who are big people in the city who I don't even know how to approach them. I don't know how to network. So it's okay, well, what do you need to do in a month to get yourself to a point to meet these people? And what do you need to do in a week? And what are the 5 things that you have to do this month? And what do you need to do today to reach that one thing? And I don't do this anymore, like building that web of goals. But man, if I did, if everyone did, it's insane. But yeah, and so, okay, how do I get to that point? Well, I have to reach out to these developers. I have to make a connection. I have to look up who I even want to meet. And so if that's the hardest and scariest thing that seems impossible, and there's all these other things that are right here that I could do, just doing that one impossible thing or doing your hardest thing first, which I used to like practice when I was first starting business, and I just grinded out for a while. Now I'm just like flowing through. It becomes natural after a while, but yeah, doing that hardest thing that you just hate doing first. And this is crazy for anyone listening. This is a crazy concept for me, who was a stoner through high school, who lived in his mom's basement till he joined the military. What a loser. I did not go to school. I didn't try. It's like, oh, well, I could go to the fire academy, but maybe the military will just accept me. They'll just pay for it and they'll just give me all the training. So yeah, I just like coasted. And I remember being in Cold Lake and knowing I had to renew my driver's license, but also I have to polish my boots for this fancy dinner that I'm going on in the military like in a couple days. So having those two things that I have to do was like crippling. I felt so much stress. Like I had nothing going on. I was a firefighter who knew his job, who's coasting through that. So having those two things was just like, I actually remember having to renew my driver's license. I was like, I have to drive all the way downtown. Like, what point do I stop watching Netflix to do that? I'm gonna have to miss the gym. And so now having like 100 things a day or thousands of things on this to-do list that I know are burning that have nothing to do with renewing a driver's license, that are how to pay these employees and how to scale a business to here and fix this website and realize this thing I was supposed to do 8 months ago. It's just so crazy that is now providing me less stress than the idea of having to renew my driver's license. And if my driver's license did come up for renewal, I would have to hire an assistant. There's no way I'm doing that. Whenever something like simple and personal does come up, I'm like, I'm so busy. But yeah, everyone is always busy. Is all relative. I was so busy when I had to do those one simple little things.
Well, you know, it's that old saying, you know, if you want something done, ask a busy person to do it. An actual busy person.
Yeah.
It's you speak about like the motivation, you know, growing up. I was the same. I didn't end up smoking weed till university, but I should have been
square.
Yeah, goddamn square. But I was just kind of going to school for the social aspect. No real motivation here or there for the subjects in school. So when you talk about it's just two small things, when you're just not motivated to do much of anything, everything seems like a mountain to climb. When on the other side of it, you've got, for example, CollabOften, HostOften, a well-oiled machine. You've got a million things you need to do every day, but you're present and motivated and passionate to do it because there's meaning behind it. And I find a lot of people they struggle to find meaning in their day-to-day. And I probably spent the last decade doing that. And now Ben can probably attest to this. This is the most I've had on the go ever. And
by like 100.
By like 100. But I get so much more done. I'm so much more productive, even though there's so much more on my plate.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a thing. I've always felt that way. Like looping back, if we're even going to use that content, I worked 70 days in a row. And it was just easy. I was used to it. But if I stopped doing that, then, how do you get back to it? So for me, I think going through basic training and kind of pushing myself to get to that point, even though I was doing nothing around that, just having that bit of discipline. And when I was in Cold Lake and I had nothing to do but kind of work on my muscles so I could meet some fancy girls. That was good enough motivation. And I would work on those muscles and I got
get those
good
glamour
at it.
muscles going.
But it starts to feel really good. I was doing like good functional workouts. I want to be a good firefighter. I was working with a lot of fat guys. I was like, I get it. We only have a call a month. It's okay if they're overweight because like they would get heart attacks if we had the normal volume of calls the city has. But for me, I was taking it seriously and I was the healthiest and happiest I'd been. But to have that discipline that I had of working out when I was doing that, because I was so busy, I was working out. My house was also spotless. I was doing all these other little things that were just happening when I stopped working out, when I didn't have that discipline and routine. I should have so much more time. I should have so much more energy. But instead, nothing's getting done. Once you start eating ice cream on the couch, which you fell asleep on last night watching TV, and you wake up, it's hard to get out of that kind of loop of laziness, which I think we all have in us.
Definitely.
But yeah, the more you do, the more you want to do. And it doesn't
It's funny how
stop.
that is human. You
contagious.
just, it is contagious. You just bring that up a bit. You're kind of.
I think a lot.
talking over it
If
right
I
now.
if I could,
you
like
go.
you were probably setting a lot of goals throughout your military career, which then helped you transition into your entrepreneurial career. Maybe did you ever think of that or no?
Yeah, I did a little bit. I think they were just sneaky secret goals.
Sneaky,
like I
yeah.
said,
But it
I was
did give you
scared to
that
say them out
discipline.
loud, even to myself.
Yeah, it's frightening.
Yeah, pretty early into business. I started a mastermind group, so like I didn't know anything about business. I moved to Halifax. The first week I started reaching out to the coolest entrepreneurs I could find on LinkedIn. And people who have businesses are always getting pitched. I don't get notifications from my LinkedIn. I don't want to look at it. But these guys would see my pitch, which was, "Oh, it's so cool what you're doing about this. I love this, blah, 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 blah." Like a lot of fluff. But man, I'm doing this, you're doing this. That's really cool. I think we should just grab a coffee. We can chat about the sharing economy or XXXXX that these guys do or whatever. But you never know how we can help each other. And just that line, you never know how we can help each other.
Yeah.
And just like wanting to meet, where I feel that's probably a line people who sell insurance, who actually met with someone today who sells insurance, use that. But he was great. He was just a great salesman. I wanted to talk to him. Yeah, people use that kind of stuff. But because it just seemed like I just wanted to connect with people, the coolest people did. And they're people who have gone to school, have been running businesses for years, who are my age, but instead of spending 10 years in the military, I spent 10 years building unique businesses that were like, I was bowing down to these guys, and they'd meet me for coffee, and I was like, something I learned on podcasts is having a mastermind, where it's just people who come together, and it could be about anything, not just business, to share knowledge and to support each other and to have ideas. So I created an entrepreneur mastermind, and it was just this group of guys who we'd meet in the morning for coffee once a month. And because I brought them together, even though they were all kind of people I looked up to, they would look to me like, what are we doing? What's going on? So they would look to me as the authority because I was doing something different. So that was super cool. And so I'd end up meeting with these guys.
I feel like there's a couple transferable like skills at least, right?
It was cool. They were looking to me as, the person who brought these people together, as if I had some authority, which is just an ego boost, even though I was doing nothing but taking advantage of social media. And anything these guys would suggest in the meeting, I would just do. And because I was doing something different, a lot of them were real estate guys, which has been the same for a lot of years. I was the only person doing Airbnb, using the sharing economy, doing something slightly different. So they're excited to hear about what I was doing, and they had these suggestions. And some of them were just, you need to be an online personality. You need to get online and share your brand and be a personal brand. And so I just remember everything they would say, I would go home and do that day. And a lot of it was so uncomfortable. But yeah, the main one was going on Facebook to my current audience, who has never even known I'm doing business. This is people that are my high school friends who've been around for 15 years, and just setting my goals publicly. So we were talking before about having these goals that you never actualize, you never want to say out loud. So I went online and I set a goal that I'm going to say my goals every day for 30 days. It was like leading up to New Year's 2018. I'm going to say all my goals for the next year. And these are all things I am going to do next year. And I was saying it like this in a little bit of a cocky way. Well, if you do this, days lead to months. I was like spouting all these quotes that other people say. And it was like super inspiring to people that were in my network. Some of them were saying like they're not used to having this kind of business inspiration. Like for me, I just been listening to nonstop personal development kind of YouTube videos and quotes. And so yeah, I was going on and I was like trying to create them myself. But every day I was listing off a goal. Man, I definitely failed some of those goals. Some of them were to have 100 properties.
You're getting there.
Yeah, it was like I'm gonna have 100
Halfway.
properties within a year. But
Lofty.
it was like 100 properties, whatever. But yeah, a year and a half later, to almost be hitting 50, which is mind blowing to me.
Right.
It's like,
Is that him?
part of it is because I didn't really think I was going to get 100 properties, but like listing these unfathomable goals, if you reach halfway, that's amazing. But I wasn't confident I could get all the way. I could have hit 100 properties, I could have hit 1,000, but I knew to myself that I wasn't going to. I never like gave myself the confidence I'm going to. Like, man, I'd be lucky if I hit 50. So I hit 50. That's why. I know a lot of people who did similar things to me that have 7,000 properties here too. And that's
7,000.
yeah, they took,
G's,
and so
son.
this is not owned properties, but you're managing 7,000. I'm managing 45 right now, but that's doing things a different way. Okay, how do I get 7,000? Well, man, I gotta have some pretty insane systems. Getting to 50 is one thing, but the systems from 50 to 100 and 100 to 1,000 require so much staff, so much infrastructure. So you need to be finding investors. You need to be getting a
More
lot
employees
behind you. And so for me, that's something I never really pursued. I was like, I don't really want to have to deal with millions of dollars of investment.
Fair.
I never had any intention to kind of scale a business to this point anyway. So I knew it's hard to get there without those kinds of steps.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, just like more well-rounded. And like I said, we were talking about 10 years. I feel like fucking 10 years, I could have been doing so much. Imagine if I knew about goals 10 years ago. I drained Netflix.
Take solace in the fact you know about them now.
Was that?
Take solace in the fact that you know
But
them now.
I think all of that built to me
Exactly.
Exactly. That's
Exactly.
here right now for who I am.
We've had that
100%.
conversation before because I always say,
Everything
what
you've
the
done
fuck
in life has led you to where you're at.
was I doing?
I was talking about on the way in. My wife and I decided to split up. We just got married in August. We've been together 5 years. Best decision ever, and it's because we've been long distance and because of all this shit. And it is like gonna be one of the best experiences of my life to have been with this person who's now gonna be my good friend, who's gonna end up having her whole family and new life. But it's gonna
So the
leave me
distance, where is she in Toronto?
Calgary,
Oh, she's out in Calgary.
like
right
real
now.
distance.
Yeah.
So
Calgary
it's leading
Zoo.
me
Shout
to
out.
be the person who's gonna be right for my new partners.
love that.
Polyamory.
That's very healthy.
No monogamy.
So we talked about HostOften briefly. Another thing I wanted to touch on before we get out of here with you mentioned you've got over 40, well now 50 Airbnb properties, and if we go all the way back, a little callback, you're a bit of an artist growing up. How much do you take pride and enjoy actually designing the spaces themselves? Because one of the spaces that you on your catalog, I guess you could say, is a retro Airbnb. Very cool. This is before I knew who you were, and I came across that on Instagram, and I was like, damn, I didn't even know that was a thing that people are doing, like themed Airbnbs.
They weren't. I'm the first.
There we go. That's so cool. Can you how did that all kind of come to be?
Yeah, so that's a huge part of it. Being able to be creative. It was hard when I first started my business. I wanted to create the ads and like make my cartoon mascot and do all that stuff that I was like, no, that is too fun. You have to hire people to do it and work on the business systems. So yeah, for me being in business, creating business is being able to creative. So now that I have this opportunity to be creative within my spaces, it's exciting, it's fun. So most of what we do is we manage properties for other people, but some of what we do is we get access to spaces from landlords in the city. So they rent us these spaces and give us permission to essentially turn them into hotels, which when I first started, with the power of thinking, got access from having no connections to unlimited spaces, and I ended up signing 5 leases in one day and maxing out all these credit cards and lines of credits and furnishing them within a week and getting them all filled with guests. So creative process there, but not really great design work like they could have been. So kind of moving forward, now I have really creative people in my life, like my friend Jess, who helped me design this retro unit. So I just had this vision of putting old school arcade machines and making this kind of like fun 80s vibe. And then I invited her in and everything changed because Actually, she is a very creative person, an artist who has this brilliant design mind. And so all these things that she would think of, I was like, nah, what? No, I just want to have like Nintendos and like, and she, her and I went thrifting, and in a couple of weeks we created, one of Halifax's first real cool themed units that I'm super excited about.
So cool. Is Jess your number one employee?
No. She's like 17.
70. Way down there. She's making her way up, but it's a slow process.
Yeah. She's figuring
got thick
it out.
skin.
It's a cool relationship. Having a close friend who works for your company, very risky, very scary. I don't want to spend too much time with my employees. But so I don't actually have executive roles in the company, but having other managers within the company, people that I'm dealing with daily for the problem solving kind of stuff, they have to be people I want to spend time with. So most of them are remote. That's how I started. My best employees are in Colombia and Guatemala. And these are people that have been with me since the beginning, that have become close friends, that I would like to talk to daily, that I know about their life. And so this is kind of a first, having my friend Jess work with me locally, where she moved here to check out Halifax, and is working full time, doing all kinds of different design work and marketing and client communications within HostOften. And it's really fun to have a close friend that you want to talk with, and they're in your business, so we can talk about business. It's got to the point after a couple months where we have to just stop. We can't talk about business to be friends. It was so fun for a while, and it's been great to brainstorm, but now it's like, okay, we need to settle down. But my online business manager lives in Guatemala. She's brilliant. For the first time ever, I went to Guatemala.
What's her name? We'll give her a shout out.
June.
Shout out, June.
Yeah, she's going to listen to it with her husband, Alan. They're amazing. I flew to Guatemala. The most hospitable people, which is why, she works phenomenal to manage the whole customer service department for my technically small hotel brand. Yeah, they picked me up in Guatemala, and I spent 3 weeks living with them. I got to work with her physically in person, which is really rare, I think, for most entrepreneurs who have digital employees, and live with them. And they showed me around Guatemala. And then I would also separate from them and experience it and travel. And it was phenomenal. So now to have this close friend, and I went out with her and her friends, and we were actually really friends when we were down there, but also got to work together and get to know each other. That's really exciting part about the business. Now I'm going to go back to Guatemala for sure this winter. Bring Jess again. Go to Colombia to hang out with Cindy. Shout out Cindy, who helped also from the beginning. She was actually
shout out
my first ever Airbnb communication representative. So when I first leased my first 5 properties and put them on Airbnb and couldn't do it myself anymore, and I hired Cindy. She took over communication for all 5, pretending she was me. When everyone messages like, "Hey, Sid," she's like, "Hey, guys." And then she hired and trained 8 other people beneath her and built all of the systems to manage all of these Airbnbs.
Wow.
And didn't believe me. I was like, "Hey, we're going to do 50 in a year." She's like, "Hey, that's great. This is fun. Good part-time job." And now that it's started to happen, and every time we kind of talk about it, like, I didn't doubt you, but also like didn't really think it was going to happen this fast. And so, now these employees who were kind of there through the beginning, who got to build this together.
What wouldn't have happened for her that fast with that attitude? Cindy.
No.
Cindy, get your mind right.
It's because of her. And she actually hired June, who became the online business manager. And so these people who are there through the beginning, if you're able to keep those people who support you and just make them a part of something. So these people are my friends. From the beginning, it's always felt so weird to say employee.
Yeah.
I've always said we work together. Whenever someone says, "Oh, my boss," it just seems so bizarre. We work together. Oh yeah, Cindy, June. We work together. She helps build this part for our company. Yes, I'm the sole owner, but really right now they still make more money than me. I'm not taking a salary, so it's their company.
Still in that build out phase.
Yeah, startup.
Start up.
Yeah, I do not love managing. So June and Cindy are managers, and I just want them to be my friends, and I want to tell them what needs to happen, like very matter of fact. This is missing. This needs to happen. This needs to happen, like through text, and they can then guide and coach and lead and train the people to do it. Oh my gosh! And so yeah, that I'm not gonna say is a weakness to manage people, but something that really tests me and kind of is a lot. So to have people fill in those gaps who they might not love it. I know they definitely don't love when I tell them they have to fire somebody, but to have people do that kind of stuff that you don't thrive in, and then I just get to support them and honestly tell them you're doing a great job every time they fuck up. Like, you have no idea how much worse I would have done it. It's like, I'm so sorry. Like this guest canceled. I can't believe I screwed this up. You asked me to do this a month ago and I never did. And now this is, it's like, honestly,
Could have been much worse.
yeah, I wasn't going to do it anyway. So,
Right, Cindy, it's fine.
it is
Yeah,
all
Cindy,
good.
I wasn't even thinking
we'll
about
get
it.
it. We'll figure it
I
out.
don't like regularly list the mistakes I make every day to make them feel better. But anytime anyone does make a mistake, yeah, you don't want to normalize it, but be like, yeah, I get it.
We're
You should,
not-
you should
we're
see
all
what I'm doing.
humans.
You should see what I do.
Are we?
Yeah.
Well, you never know. Sid over there might be an alien. Yeah, before we finish things up here, Sid, any big things coming up in the future for you that are of note?
Yeah, probably 10 to 50,000 big things coming up in my future that are of note.
10 to 50,000.
I have
That's a lot.
I have no idea what most of them are. I'm going to be caught off guard. Some of them I probably already do know. I feel like we just
Okay.
got to wait.
Ready for anything
that
now.
happen. Yeah.
Patience is key.
Yeah, check me out. My improv gig coming up, Bust Up Theater.
that.
I'm going to be doing a TED Talk on the streets. This is a new TED Talk on the streets
Just
thing.
right downtown.
I'm starting a new business.
You're going to 100 elementaries in 100 days, right?
100 for 100.
Yeah. 100 for
Oh,
100.
that's great. Yeah, I mean, that was a great chat. I really enjoyed just kind of more than anything learning about your journey. I mean, we've had now, this is 32 guests,
32.
and your story kind of resonates with me a bit more because I was similar growing up, very unmotivated scholastically, but saw this, like I enjoyed the social aspect of it, and then kind of my 20s and just smoked weed and finally kind of found that motivation later on. So it's kind of cool, and it's reassuring that you can completely fuck off and still get your shit together.
Yeah.
It's never too late.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, we really want to thank you, Sid, for coming on, sharing your story.
And your energy.
Yeah, giving us that energy that everyone really needs. That's another thing. If you're low on energy, go spend some time around someone who's got some. Top that shit off.
We've been friends for a
5 minutes
couple
with
weeks
Sid.
now. It's nice to hear my first ever thank you. So
Oh, you know
thank
what?
you for that. Thank you.
Well, fuck yourself too. Just kidding. Love you, Sid.
Aggressive.
I feel like we're like on that friend level where we can just like razz each other. Who knows? I don't know.
Place to be.
It's a great place to be.
Hopefully you'll be crying in my arms by the next one.
Here you go.
That's pretty much a given.
Yeah.
I thought we were doing that right after
Ben's
we
got a few more sobs left in him.
finish the recording tonight.
I think I'm sobbed
A
up.
few. We've got infinite sobs in us. Don't you worry about that.
We're actually technically made out of 90% sobs. So just open yourself
water,
up.
not water, sobs.
Let the sobs flow.
Open your mind to the sobs. All right, Sid. Really appreciate you stopping by, and looking forward to collabing with you in the future and getting you on here on the other side of things, the other side of the table, I suppose. That could be,
The other hot seat.
yeah. Not
We're
an
literally
exact
in
date.
a basement that is unfinished. You
goddamn
can see
sauna in here.
The installation, there is no table. There is
Sid's
no table.
no, he's about to get murdered now. We're not
We're upstairs.
can't give you an exact date, but check back on Instagram and we'll have some more info on that going forward. But yeah, HostOften. Check it out if you're going to be in Halifax anytime soon. You need to rent an Airbnb. That's the way to go. And
For your themed Airbnb.
if you're going to be in Halifax and you need an Airbnb and you also want to get down and freaky, also the place to go.
If you're looking to fuck, don't look at me. But I could give you a place you can fuck in.
There we go. The funky jungle.
95% of his places are celibate places, and then the other 5% are shag palaces.
100% have been jizzed on.
I'm starting to think a bit more about this celibacy thing here.
Take all you want.
Oh my. All right, folks, we're going to get out of here before we get in trouble. For Brand New View, I'm Mark Boudreau.
I'm Ben Brammer.
Peace.
Cheers.
I was the same old